In a town where everyone remembered your first kiss and your worst day, Callie learned what it meant to be left behind. Quietly, cleanly, like she was something Oliver could set down and never pick up again. He didn't slam doors. He didn't shout. He simply chose his future over her heart and walked away before she could understand what was breaking. Seasons turned without asking permission. Winter came and went. Harvests rose and fell. The clinic lights kept glowing at night. And Callie, she didn't wait. She rebuilt. She grew strong in places that used to be soft. Then years later, on a day that looked ordinary until it wasn't, Oliver came back. Not as the boy who left, but as the man who carried that leaving like a scar he could no longer hide. His eyes held regret. His hands held nothing, because he knew he had no right to ask for anything. Callie didn't run to him. She didn't collapse into old love. She simply looked at him like a woman who survived a storm, watching the same clouds return. And the question that made the whole town hold its breath was the same one that echoed in her chest. Was it too late? Stay until the end, because the second chance Oliver didn't deserve is the one he'll have to fight for with actions, not words. And what Callie finally does will make you believe in love again. Callie first noticed something was wrong by the way Oliver stopped touching the future. He used to speak in we, like it was a promise carved into wood and stone. Now he spoke in schedules, numbers, meetings, distance, and just for a while. That morning, the sun rose pale over the fields like it was afraid to be seen. Her kitchen smelled like coffee and toast, the normality almost insulting. Oliver stood by the sink, tie half done, eyes fixed on nothing at all. And Callie, emotionally intelligent enough to feel silence before it spoke, waited. Small towns were full of gentle rhythms, tractor engines, church bells, the clinic siren. Callie worked long shifts at the local clinic, but she never felt alone with him. Oliver had always been the kind of man who made space feel safer. He'd drive her home, fingers laced with hers as if the world could wait. But lately, when she talked, his attention drifted like smoke to distant places. He'd nod, smile, and still look like he was already leaving. It wasn't cruelty. Worse than that, it was absence. The opportunity arrived like a golden ticket disguised as a burden. A corporate expansion deal, big city money pouring into small-town land. Oliver's name had been mentioned in rooms Callie would never enter. Men in suits shook his hand like he'd finally become who he always feared he wasn't. He told her it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and his voice sounded rehearsed. Callie listened, supportive at first because love should not be a cage. But the way his eyes refused to meet hers made her stomach turn cold. They sat on the porch that night, wrapped in a blanket, watching frost settle. Callie spoke carefully, not accusing, just asking the questions that mattered. "Where do I fit in that future, Oliver?" she whispered into the winter air. He took too long to answer, and the pause did more damage than words could. He said he loved her. He said it wasn't about her. He said it was fear. But when she asked, "Fear of what?" his jaw tightened like a locked door. In that moment, Callie realized he was negotiating with his own heart. Oliver wasn't a villain. He was a man raised to believe softness was dangerous. His father had taught him success could replace everything love demanded. He'd learned early that attachment was risk, and risk was weakness. And Callie, steady, warm, emotionally present, made him feel exposed. Not because she asked for too much, but because she saw him too clearly. He wanted to be brave for her, but he wanted control even more. So he chose the one thing control always promised: distance. The morning he left, the town looked like it was holding its breath. A thin layer of ice glazed the road, glittering like a warning. Callie watched him pack with the calm of someone trying not to panic. She didn't beg. She didn't cry in front of him. Not because she couldn't, but because she wouldn't. She asked only one thing, voice steady, hands trembling at her sides. "Tell me the truth," she said. "Is this temporary? Or is this goodbye?" Oliver's silence landed like a verdict. He finally turned to her, and for a second she saw the boy he used to be. His eyes were wet, but his pride kept his face hard. "I can't breathe here," he said. and the words were sharper than he intended. Callie flinched like she'd been slapped, then forced herself to stand taller. "Then don't make me your oxygen," she replied, voice quiet but unbreakable. He looked at her like he wanted to run back into her arms, but he stepped away instead. The car door shut with a soft click, too soft for what it meant. Oliver put his hand on the steering wheel and stared forward, jaw clenched. Callie stood on the porch, coat open, cold air crawling under her skin. She waited for him to look back, to do the one human thing that might save them. He didn't. Or if he did it too quickly for her to catch. The engine started and the sound carried down the empty road like an ending. When the tires rolled away, something inside Callie went silent. At first, the shock protected her like numbness. She cleaned the kitchen. She folded laundry. She answered a neighbor's text like nothing changed. But then the quiet stretched, and reality began pressing its weight into her chest. She found his mug in the sink, still stained with coffee. She found his sweater draped over a chair, smelling like cedar and aftershave. Her throat tightened, but she swallowed the grief like medicine, bitter, necessary, because in that moment, she understood. Survival would be her first act of love for herself. The clinic called her in that afternoon. An older farmer had collapsed in the fields. Callie drove with shaking hands, forcing her mind into work mode. At the hospital, fluorescent lights erased softness from every face. She moved through hallways with practiced competence, hiding her heartbreak behind skill. Patients needed her steady. Nurses needed her quick. The town needed her functioning. And Callie needed something to do so she didn't fall apart. She became useful because usefulness hurt less than being unwanted. Word traveled the way it always did in small places. Quietly, relentlessly. "Did you hear Oliver left?" Someone whispered near the grocery aisle. Callie felt the sentence brush her back like a cold hand. She kept walking, chin lifted, refusing to give the town her tears. If grief had a face, she wouldn't let them memorize hers. She paid for her food, smiled at the cashier, and carried her bags alone. Strength, she learned, sometimes looked like silence. That night, she didn't collapse into bed. She sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and wrote a list. Bills, shifts, repairs, things she'd handle without him. The list was not bitterness, it was boundaries forming on paper. She wrote until the ink blurred, then wiped her face with the back of her hand. Callie wasn't pretending it didn't hurt. She was refusing to let pain decide her life. Outside, the wind rattled the windows like a warning. Winter was coming. Days turned into weeks, and Oliver became a ghost with a real address. He sent one message, short, careful, almost cowardly. "I'm sorry. I need time. I hope you understand." Callie stared at it for a long moment, then placed her phone face down. Understanding was not the same as accepting. She didn't reply, not to punish him, but to protect what remained of her dignity. If he wanted distance, she would give it, fully. Callie discovered grief was not a wave, it was weather. Some mornings she woke up fine, almost hopeful, until she saw the empty driveway. Some nights she laughed at a patient's joke, then cried in her car afterward. But slowly, she began to notice something else growing beneath the pain. A backbone, a clarity, a new respect for herself. Oliver had left, but he hadn't taken her worth with him. And that truth started to warm her like a hidden ember. On the first day snow fell, she walked through town and didn't feel invisible. She felt present, like a woman learning how to own her space. She volunteered for extra shifts, helped neighbors, fixed her own broken fence. Her hands got rougher, her shoulders got stronger, and the version of Callie that emerged wasn't weaker from loss. She was sharpened. Pain had carved out room for power. Still, some nights, memory came like a thief. Oliver's laugh, his arms around her in the kitchen. The way he once promised, "I'm staying." Callie would press her palm to her chest and breathe through the ache. She refused to romanticize abandonment, even when loneliness tempted her. Because love without loyalty was just hunger wearing perfume. And Callie had decided she would never starve for someone who chose to leave. She would feed herself first. By spring, the town began to see her differently, not as the woman who got left, but as the woman who kept going. The clinic staff trusted her. Patients asked for her by name. Neighbors leaned on her strength. Callie's life didn't stop because Oliver walked away. It reorganized. It matured. It rose. And yet sometimes when she drove past the old field at sunset, she wondered, would he ever realize what he broke? She got her answer on a day that started like any other. A warm breeze moved through the trees like the first real promise of change. Callie stepped out of the clinic after a long shift and froze mid-breath. Across the street, a black car sat parked, too polished for this town, too deliberate. And beside it stood a man she would have recognized in any lifetime. Oliver looked up and the regret in his eyes hit her like lightning. Callie's heart didn't soften, it braced, because the past had just returned. The air felt colder the moment Oliver lifted his gaze from across the street. It wasn't just surprise, it was the kind of shock that wakes old scars. Callie went still as if holding her heart in place so it wouldn't fall. The world kept moving, cars passing, someone laughing in the distance, doors opening. Inside her, everything snapped back to the morning he walked away. Only this time she wasn't the woman begging silence to stay. This time, she knew exactly what she deserved to hear. Without crossing the street, Callie turned around and walked back into the clinic. Firm steps, straight spine, controlled breathing, survivor discipline. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee, and routine tried to save her from the edge. A nurse asked if she was okay. Callie answered with a flawless yes. But in her chest, the real question pounded without mercy. Why now? Oliver didn't come back out of nostalgia. Men like him didn't cross years for longing. If he was here, something was about to change or break again. Outside, the glass door reflected past and present at the same time. The Oliver in her memory was speed, pride, escape dressed up as opportunity. The Oliver standing there now looked quieter, heavier, like he carried stones in his shoulders. Callie hated noticing details, hated recognizing the tension in his jaw. Her traitorous heart tried to remember what had been good before the fall. She silenced it with the same firmness she used in a crisis. Love wasn't permission. Love was choice. And choice demanded truth. Months before that afternoon, winter had started inside her house. The bed felt too big, the table too wide, the nights too long. Callie learned to sleep with wind tapping the window like judgment. She learned to wake early just to leave no room for the thought of what if. There were no long letters, no beautiful explanations, no decent apology. Only that short message, careful, almost cowardly, that she never answered. Someone who abandons you doesn't deserve the reward of an immediate reply. In a small town, people didn't ask directly. They just looked. Looks that weighed like grain in a truck, silent but loaded with opinion. Callie moved through them like someone walking in rain without an umbrella. Some hands helped, others only pointed from a distance. Even when someone said, "It'll be okay," curiosity hid behind the kindness. She discovered public pain tastes metallic, hard to swallow. So she turned shame into posture, chin up, boundaries clear, faith in her own ground. At the clinic, work became a kind of prayer without words. Between bandages and stitches, she remembered she was still needed. An old farmer held her hand with shaking fingers and thanked her for not giving up. A young mother cried on Callie's shoulder, and Callie didn't break. Being strong wasn't the absence of feeling. It was feeling and moving anyway. She didn't get over it in days. She built survival in small bricks. And every brick said, "You won't die because someone left." Eventually, the silence stopped being only emptiness. It became space. Space for decisions she used to postpone because she loved too much. Callie opened a bank account in her own name, reorganized bills, cut what she didn't need. She learned to fix the backyard fence and change a light bulb without calling anyone. Life felt heavier, but it also felt more honest. Dependence disguised as romance would never be her life again. On New Year's, snow fell slowly, as if God were writing with patience. Callie watched fireworks from a distance. No party, no shouted promises. Hot chocolate warming her hands, a quiet decision settling in her chest. No, I'll find someone better. This wasn't about proving anything. Her vow was simple and brutal. I will never abandon myself for anyone again. Then she closed her eyes and let hope slip in like air to the lungs. New beginnings weren't loud. They were steady. Oliver's name showed up in an online article on a Tuesday morning. Polished photo, perfect suit, trained smile. Success printed without permission. He'd closed a major deal in agricultural business, invested in technology, climbed fast. The town talked like it was a shared victory. Look how far he's gone. Something rose in Callie's throat and she refused to call it jealousy. It wasn't jealousy. It was the old question. What about us? Still, she closed the screen and went on living, because life didn't wait. Between the end of winter and the start of spring, Callie grew more whole. Not because the pain vanished, but because she stopped apologizing for feeling. She went to therapy with the same courage she brought to an emergency shift. She heard truths that hurt, about attachment, about limits, about how love turns into addiction. She cried behind closed doors, not on a public stage. She walked out with an inner voice clearer than anyone's opinions. And when she thought of Oliver, it wasn't longing anymore. It was clarity. The town began to look at her differently too. The label, the one who got left, lost its power beside the woman who kept people standing. She led a campaign to expand the clinic services. She chased donations, gathered volunteers, organized small events that carried real weight. Kids made thank you cards with crooked hearts and honest colors. Callie saved everyone as proof that life still offered love. Maybe not romantic love, but the kind that heals you from the inside out. Then, the storm week hit. Hard winds dropped trees. One farm lost power. Roads turned dangerous. The clinic overflowed. The hospital in the next town was overwhelmed. Callie worked 36 hours with barely any sleep, driven by the urgency of someone who can't fail. That night, stitching a deep cut on a teenager's arm, she thought, Oliver couldn't handle the pressure of loving. I can handle the pressure of saving. The comparison wasn't to humiliate him. It was to remember how far she'd come. Rain drumming on the car roof on the way home sounded like applause and threat. She parked, stepped inside, peeled off her wet coat, and stood in the middle of the living room. Silence. No man's voice asking, "How was your day?" And strangely, she didn't collapse. The absence still hurt, but it no longer ruled her. Callie breathed in, grabbed a pen, and wrote a different kind of list. This time, it wasn't bills. It was dreams she would never negotiate again. When spring finally touched the fields, hope came with the mud. New shoots in the soil seemed to say nothing dies forever. It only changes shape. Callie started running in the mornings, lungs burning like purification. She started smiling without guilt, like someone allowing herself to live again. And still, somewhere deep, a wound remained open. Not from lack of love, because love existed, but from lack of emotional justice. That's why when she saw Oliver across the street that evening, she didn't run. The old Callie would have frozen and spilled her pride into tears. The new Callie did the opposite. She held the tremor and chose presence. She knew a reunion without maturity becomes relapse, and relapse is a prison. Her heart beat fast, but now it obeyed a mind trained in boundaries. If Oliver wanted a return, he'd have to walk through the narrow hallway of truth. And truth had no red carpet, only solid ground. While Callie sorted charts with hands pretending calm, a call came through. Not to her cell phone, to the clinic phone, like fate refused to be subtle. The receptionist waved her over. "Callie, there's a man asking for you." The voice on the other end wasn't arrogant, it was low, restrained. "I won't interrupt your work," Oliver said. "I just need 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Enough time to break someone or start rebuilding them." Callie closed her eyes and decided, this time she would control the time. She walked outside and found him near the old tree by the sidewalk. The wind lifted the edge of his coat, and Callie noticed a scar across his hand. Small detail, but strange, like life had demanded payment from him too. Oliver swallowed hard, and the silence between them was a wild animal. "Are you okay?" slipped out of her mouth before she could stop it. He inhaled like he didn't even deserve that gentleness. "I'm just too late." he said, and the regret sounded real. "Why are you back, Oliver?" Callie asked, voice steady, blade unsheathed. He hesitated, and for 1 second she almost hated hope for trying to rise. "Because I finally understand," he said, staring at the ground like confession. "I didn't come to be comforted. I came to fix what I destroyed. The right way." It sounded beautiful, and Callie refused to believe it just because she wanted to. She crossed her arms, eyes firm, heart alert. "Then prove it," she said, and all of spring seemed to hold its breath with her. 5 minutes didn't exist in a small town, not when the past was standing on the sidewalk with your name in his mouth. Callie watched Oliver like she watched unstable vitals. Calm face, sharp focus. His coat carried the scent of cold air and expensive fabric. Success hadn't left him. It had simply stopped looking like armor. He didn't step closer, as if distance was the only respect he knew. "Tell me what you want," she said, and made it sound like a boundary. Oliver's throat moved with a swallowed confession. "I want a chance to do this right," he began, then stopped himself. He seemed to understand that words were cheap where damage was expensive. "So here's the truth," he said, voice low, raw around the edges. "I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness today." A pause, heavy as a closed door, then, "I'm here to earn the right to speak." Callie didn't soften. She simply nodded once, permission without mercy. The scar on his hand kept pulling her attention back. It looked recent. Clean edges, healed enough to not be new. "Where did that come from?" she asked, hating that she still noticed him. Oliver turned his palm upward like he was offering proof. Not sympathy. "An accident," he said. "A real one." He didn't dramatize it, and that restraint felt unfamiliar. Callie held his gaze, waiting for the part he was avoiding. Instead of giving her a story, Oliver gave her a question. "Is the clinic still funded through March?" he asked suddenly. The shift was so sharp it made Callie's shoulders tense. "What does that have to do with you?" His jaw tightened, and his eyes flicked toward the building behind her. "Everything," he said, like a man confessing to a different kind of sin. Then he added, "They're coming for it. Tomorrow." Callie felt the ground tilt, not because she was fragile, because she knew her numbers. The clinic had been surviving on grants, donations, and stubbornness. A few months of bad luck could kill a place like this quietly. No sirens, no headlines, just locked doors and unanswered calls. "We're not closing," she said, voice like steel wrapped in kindness. Oliver didn't argue. He simply exhaled like he'd been waiting to hear her fight. "I know," he murmured. "That's why I'm here." Inside, the clinic buzzed with end-of-day exhaustion. A nurse rolled a cart past them, and someone coughed behind a thin curtain. Callie walked ahead, forcing Oliver to follow her pace. If he wanted to return, he would enter her world on her rules. She took him into an empty office, the one with chipped paint and warm lamplight. No romance lived in that room, only responsibility. "Start explaining," Callie said, and pointed him to a chair he didn't deserve. Oliver sat like a man who had learned humility the hard way. "The property lease is being bought out," he said. "A private group out of state wants the land for an expansion project." Callie's stomach tightened. She had heard rumors, dismissed them as gossip. "We have contracts," she snapped, flipping open a folder on her desk. He nodded once as if he expected her anger. "They found loopholes," he said quietly. "And they move fast." Callie's mind raced through logistics like it always did in emergencies. Legal aid, city council, community fundraising, press pressure. Possible but brutal. "How do you even know this?" she demanded. Oliver held her eyes like a man refusing to hide behind politeness anymore. "Because I was in the meeting," he said. The sentence hit the room like a dropped instrument. Loud, unforgivable. Callie stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "So you're back, because you're part of it," she said, voice shaking with control. Not hysterical, precise, lethal. Oliver flinched as if the truth deserved the pain it caused. "I was invited," he admitted. "They wanted me to lead it." "Of course they did," Callie whispered, bitterness like smoke in her lungs. Ambition, the old god that had always demanded sacrifice. "Tell me you didn't say yes," she said, and dared him to break her twice. Oliver's answer didn't come as a defense. It came as a surrender. I said no, he said, and his voice cracked on the word. Then he pushed a folder across her desk. Documents, signatures, numbers she recognized. Callie's eyes scanned fast, trained by years of reading charts and trauma. A donation pledge, large enough to stabilize the clinic for years. And the name attached to it wasn't Oliver's. "Why is my name here?" Callie asked, stunned despite herself. Printed in bold, Callie Hart, Community Health Director Fund. Her hands went cold as she flipped the pages. A trust, a grant match, a property protection clause. She looked up and Oliver's face was a quiet storm of regret. "Because you built this," he said. "Not me. And because I'm done letting my pride be the author of your losses." The room held its breath around them. Callie stared at the paperwork like it might dissolve into a trick. "You could have done this anonymously," she said. "You could have stayed away." Oliver gave a small, almost broken laugh, no humor in it. "I tried," he admitted. "For months. I funded emergency supplies after the storm. The deliveries, the equipment." Callie's heart stuttered. She remembered the boxes that had arrived with no return address. "You were the donor," she said, voice low, disbelieving. Oliver nodded once, not proud, ashamed it took this long. "I saw the news that week," he said. "I saw you working until you could barely stand." His eyes brightened with something that looked like self-hatred. "And I realized the world didn't collapse when I left. It kept turning, because you kept holding it up." Callie pressed her fingers to her temple, fighting the urge to feel anything too soon. Anger rose anyway, clean and justified. "So you watched from a distance," she said, "and thought money could rewrite harm." Oliver didn't flinch this time. He nodded like he deserved the accusation. "It can't," he said. "That's why I came back in person. Not to buy forgiveness," he added quickly, as if the thought disgusted him, "but to stop them from taking what you saved." Callie leaned forward, eyes hard. "And what's the cost, Oliver?" Oliver's gaze dropped to his scarred hand. "A signature," he said. "Mine." He explained how the deal was structured, how the group needed his endorsement, how refusing them created a fight he couldn't win from a distance. How, to block it legally, he had to expose himself as the one standing in their way. "They'll come after me," he said simply. "Legally, publicly, financially, and I'm still choosing it," he finished like a man finally choosing the right loss. Callie stood and walked to the window, needing space from the collision of past and present. Outside, the street lamps flickered on, and the town looked small enough to protect. Her life had become a fortress built from pain and purpose. Letting Oliver near it felt dangerous, not because she wanted him, but because she remembered. "You don't get to be the hero of a story you caused," she said, not turning around. Oliver's voice came gentle, steady, almost reverent. "Then don't let me be a hero," he replied. "Let me be accountable." A knock interrupted them. Urgent, sharp. The receptionist stepped in, face pale. "Callie, we've got an emergency intake." A farming accident. A teenage boy pinned under equipment, bleeding, shock setting in. Callie's instincts snapped into place like armor. "Prep room 2. Call for transport." She turned to Oliver without thinking. "If you're staying in this town, you don't watch." Oliver was already on his feet. "Tell me what to do," he said, and meant it. In the trauma room, everything moved fast. Hands, lights, commands. Callie led with calm authority. Oliver followed without pride, only precision. He held pressure where she told him, steady even when blood soaked through gauze. When the boy's mother arrived sobbing, Oliver stepped back so Callie could reach her first. No speeches. No claiming space. Just presence that didn't demand applause. And when Callie looked up, breathless, she caught Oliver watching her like a man waking up. Outside the room, someone murmured, "That's Oliver Hale." And he's here. And the town began to stir. By the next morning, Main Street didn't feel like Main Street anymore. It felt like a courtroom without a judge, full of eyes that never forgot. The diner's doorbell rang, and conversations dipped like birds avoiding a storm. Someone whispered Oliver's name as if it might summon trouble. Callie heard it all while pretending she didn't. She had learned long ago that small towns didn't need facts to form a verdict. They only needed a story, and Oliver was back inside hers. The clinic opened with a line out the door. Not because people were sicker than usual, because fear spreads faster than flu. Rumors had turned into questions overnight. Are we closing? Who's buying the land? Callie moved through the lobby with her clipboard like a shield. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm made people listen, the way a steady heartbeat calms a room. We're still here, she said, and we're not going anywhere. Oliver arrived 10 minutes later, not in a suit, not with an entourage. Dark sweater, rolled sleeves, a plain watch, almost like he was trying to blend in. He carried boxes of supplies like he'd been doing it for years. A few people stared with tight mouths and tighter memories. One older man muttered, "Took him long enough," and didn't mean it kindly. Oliver didn't react. He set the boxes down and asked where Callie needed him. That alone startled Callie more than any apology could have. She met him near the supply room and didn't offer warmth. "Today isn't about us," she said, cutting straight to the rules. Oliver nodded once, face serious. "Today is about this place," he replied. The words were correct, almost too correct, like he'd rehearsed the humility. Callie studied him the way she studied pain in a patient, real or performed. Then she noticed the bruise beneath his collarbone, faint and yellowing. A bruise that didn't belong to a man who only attended meetings. "Tell me what happened," she said, voice quiet. Oliver's eyes flicked away, then returned, honest and tired. The accident wasn't just a fall, he admitted. His scarred hand flexed as if remembering impact. "A driver ran a red light. My car flipped." Callie's breath caught despite herself, a split second of fear she didn't authorize. "And you still didn't come back then?" she said, letting the truth sting. Oliver's expression tightened with something like shame. "I wanted to," he said softly. "I almost did." Then he added, "But I realized coming back injured would make it about me." Callie hated that the logic made sense. She hated even more that he sounded like someone who had finally learned restraint. "You don't get credit for not manipulating me," she replied. "I know," Oliver said, and didn't defend himself. By noon, the mayor's office called for an emergency town meeting. A threat to the clinic was a threat to the entire county's fragile safety net. The community hall filled fast. Farmers, teachers, parents, nurses, men with folded arms. Callie stood at the front in a simple blouse, hair pinned back, eyes steady. She had faced blood loss and grief and panic attacks. She could face gossip. Oliver sat in the back at first, as if he didn't deserve the front row. But his presence changed the temperature of the room anyway. When Callie began speaking, the room quieted. Not because she demanded it, because her voice had earned authority the hard way. She explained the situation with clarity. Lease issues, legal loopholes, the timeline. No melodrama, no victimhood, just facts and determination. "We've survived storms," she said. "We'll survive paperwork." Someone called out, "Who's behind it?" Callie paused, feeling Oliver's name trying to rise like poison, and chose honesty instead. "An outside development group," she said. "Aggressive, well-funded." Murmurs rolled through the crowd like wind across cornfields. Then another voice, sharp with suspicion. "And why is Oliver Hale back now?" The room shifted, heads turning, curiosity sharpening into accusation. Callie didn't flinch. "Because he brought information," she said evenly. A scoff sounded from the left side. "Or because he's part of it." Callie's stomach tightened, but she didn't protect Oliver with a lie. Oliver stood before she could stop him. He didn't smile. He didn't perform remorse for the crowd. "I was invited to lead the project," he said, letting the sentence hit hard. Gasps, angry whispers, a few mouths tightening into, "I knew it." He raised a hand, not asking for silence, just owning the moment. "I said no," he continued, voice steady. "And I'm here to stop it." A man near the aisle barked, "Why should we believe you?" Oliver looked at Callie first, like he needed her permission to speak. Callie didn't give him a nod of comfort. She gave him a look that said, "Tell the truth." He faced the room again. "Because I can prove it," he said. He held up a folder, the same one he slid across Callie's desk. "This clinic is being protected under a new trust," he explained. "It's in Callie's name because she built it." That last line did something strange. Some people softened, others bristled at the implication of guilt. A woman stood up, voice trembling with gratitude and fury. "My husband would be dead without this clinic," she said. "So whoever threatens it—" Her sentence broke into sobs and the room grew heavier. Then a farmer with hands like rough bark spoke with blunt honesty. "Oliver, you left her," he said, "and she still kept this town alive." Oliver didn't argue. "Yes," he admitted. No excuses, no but. Just a clean, painful yes. Callie's chest tightened at the sound of it, because accountability can feel like closure. But closure wasn't the same as forgiveness. A younger man near the back snapped, "So this is guilt money?" The word money cut through the room like a blade. Oliver's jaw clenched, and for a second the old pride flickered, then died. "If you want to call it that, you can," he said. "But I'm not asking you to like me. I'm asking you to keep the clinic open." The meeting shifted from accusation to strategy. Lawyers in town offered contacts, locals volunteered for fundraising, teachers organized petitions. Callie watched the community rally, pride rising like sunrise after a storm. And yet, a new threat hummed beneath the surface: Oliver's involvement. Because if Oliver blocked a powerful group, powerful people wouldn't simply shrug and walk away. They would retaliate in ways this town didn't understand. Callie knew it. Oliver knew it. And that knowledge made the air feel tight. After the meeting, Oliver stepped outside into the cold afternoon. Alone. Callie followed at a distance, not out of concern, but out of vigilance. A black SUV idled across the street, windows tinted too dark for comfort. Oliver noticed it too. His shoulders went rigid. The vehicle rolled forward slowly, then stopped as if measuring him. Callie's pulse jumped, a warning siren in her bloodstream. Oliver turned slightly, putting himself between the SUV and the building without thinking. A man got out. Expensive coat, polished shoes, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He walked up like he owned sidewalks and outcomes. "Oliver Hale," he said warmly, as if they were friends. "You're making this difficult." Oliver's voice stayed calm. "I'm making it impossible," he corrected. The man's smile sharpened. "You can't protect her forever." Callie's spine stiffened at the word her, like she was a target, not a person. Oliver didn't glance back at Callie. He kept his eyes on the man, controlling the conversation like a shield. "Say what you came to say," Oliver told him. The man leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You walk away from this and we'll pretend you were never involved," he murmured. "You stay, and we'll make sure every success you built becomes a headline you can't outrun." Oliver's scarred hand curled into a fist, and then, deliberately, he relaxed it. "I already outran the wrong thing once," Oliver said, voice quiet but lethal. "And it cost me the only person I never should have left." Callie's breath caught, because he said it without looking at her, without trying to win points. The man's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll see how long your redemption lasts," he replied. He turned, slid back into the SUV, and drove away like a promise. Callie stepped beside Oliver, her face composed, heart pounding like thunder. "You just started a war," she said. And Oliver answered, "No, I just stopped running." Morning arrived with a thin frost and a thicker tension. The diner's radio murmured about development, jobs, and progress. Outside the clinic, a flyer appeared on the bulletin board overnight. It showed a smiling logo and a promise that sounded generous. "Modernization coming soon," it read, like a blessing. Callie tore it down with calm hands and a furious heartbeat. War never looked like war at first. It looked like paperwork. By 9, the first retaliation came dressed as procedure. 2 inspectors walked in with clipboards and polite, sharp eyes. They asked for permits, logs, storage records, staff certifications. Callie didn't panic. She had lived inside systems long enough to master them. She handed over documents, answered questions, and watched their smiles tighten. Someone wanted a mistake, a crack, a headline they could weaponize. Callie refused to give them a single loose thread to pull. Oliver showed up mid-morning carrying nothing but a toolbox. Not gifts, not speeches, tools, the language of people who fix things. He didn't step into Callie's space. He worked the edges she pointed to. A broken cabinet hinge, a flickering light, a loose railing by the ramp. Every repair was small, almost insulting compared to the damage he'd done. Yet he kept going, steady as if consistency could become an apology. Callie watched without gratitude, because gratitude was not a requirement. No one made room for him in the break room. Conversations lowered, chairs shifted, silence sharpened into judgment. Oliver accepted it like a man paying interest on old debt. He drank his coffee standing up, alone, near a vending machine. When a nurse snapped, "Don't get comfortable," he only nodded. "I'm not here to be comfortable," he said, voice even. "I'm here to be useful." Callie cornered him near the supply closet before lunch. Her tone stayed clinical, the way she spoke to men who demanded softness. "You don't get to become a good man in my building," she warned. Oliver didn't flinch. He looked like someone grateful for rules. "Then tell me where to be," he replied, hands open at his sides. "Because I'm staying in town either way." That sentence landed heavy. Commitment without romance. Presence without permission. A local journalist arrived that afternoon with a camera and a question. "Is this a love story or a publicity stunt?" she asked, too loud. Callie stepped forward, blocking the lens with her body and her authority. "This clinic isn't content," she said, voice quiet, dangerous. The journalist turned the microphone toward Oliver, hungry for drama. He surprised everyone by shaking his head. "Don't film her," he said. "Film me taking responsibility." The interview happened outside, where the town could witness it. Oliver stood under the winter sun like it had no warmth to offer. He didn't defend himself. He didn't blame fear or pressure or timing. "I left," he said plainly. "She suffered. She rebuilt without me. A few people shifted uncomfortably, because truth makes spectators complicit. I'm not asking her for forgiveness," he continued. "I'm asking you to help protect what she built." That night, the clinic received an email threatening legal action. A cease and desist, wrapped in corporate language and quiet menace. Callie read it twice, then once more with her jaw clenched. They weren't just coming for the building, they were coming for her reputation. To win, they needed Callie to look reckless, emotional, unreliable. She forwarded it to the town attorney and made a new plan. Fear was allowed in her body, but never in her decisions. Oliver called from his hotel, not from her porch. Respect, Callie noticed, can be proven in distance. "I can stop this faster," he said, voice rough with exhaustion. "They want to fight. They want me to swing first." Callie stared at the dark window, seeing her reflection like a reminder. "And you're tempted," she said, naming the danger before it grew teeth. Oliver went quiet, then admitted, "Yes, but I won't." The next day, he opened his laptop in the library's back room. No boardroom, no spotlight, just a small table and a town map. He met with Callie, the attorney, and 2 community leaders. Oliver laid out timelines, contracts, loopholes, and the company's pressure points. He didn't talk like a savior. He talked like a man correcting his own mess. Callie listened, impressed against her will by his preparation. Then she asked the only question that mattered. "What are you risking?" "Everything I built," Oliver answered, and didn't dramatize it. His eyes stayed steady, but his fingers tapped once against the table. "They'll smear my name, attack my deals, drag me into court." He paused, then added the part he hated saying out loud. "They'll come after you too because you're the leverage they understand." Callie didn't blink. She hated that he was right. "Then you better be worth the trouble," she said, and meant it as a test. A fundraiser was scheduled within 48 hours. The town moved like a body protecting its own heart. Bake sales, auction baskets, a band volunteering to play for free. Callie organized logistics. Oliver handled donors who spoke in numbers. He didn't flaunt wealth. He redirected it with precision. When a wealthy rancher tried to make it about Oliver's redemption, Oliver cut it off. "Make it about her work," he insisted. "Make it about the clinic." Behind the stage, minutes before the event began, Callie found him alone. His shoulders were tight, breath shallow, palm pressed against his ribs. The bruise beneath his collarbone looked darker in the harsh hallway light. Pain had a language, and Callie spoke it fluently. "You're hurt," she said, not as concern, as fact. Oliver shook his head like denial could keep him upright. "I'm fine," he lied, and his voice betrayed him. She grabbed his wrist and felt the tremor he was trying to hide. Not weakness, something deeper, the body remembering impact. "Panic," she diagnosed softly, and watched his eyes flash with shame. He hated being seen, and Callie understood that hatred too well. "Breathe," she instructed, firm and calm, like she did with patience. Oliver obeyed, not because he wanted comfort, but because she gave him no choice. For the first time, he looked like a man learning surrender without losing dignity. The fundraiser went beautifully, and the pressure still didn't lift. Smear posts showed up online before the first song ended. Screenshots, half-truths, cruel captions designed to split the town in two. Callie saw one post calling her a pawn and a gold digger, and didn't flinch. What stung wasn't the insult, it was the attempt to rewrite her story. Oliver saw it too, and his jaw tightened with protective rage. Callie stopped him with one sentence. "Don't fight with words, fight with proof." Proof arrived the following morning in a sealed envelope. A formal notice. The development group had filed for an emergency injunction. They wanted immediate access, immediate control, immediate displacement. Callie's pulse hit her throat, then settled back into her spine. Oliver read it once, then twice, then looked up like a man making a decision. "I can end this today," he said quietly. Callie's eyes narrowed. At what cost? Oliver pulled out his phone and opened a draft he'd never sent. A public statement. Names, dates, documents, and the truth exposed like nerve. It would burn the group, but it would also burn bridges he'd spent years building. He could keep his success by staying silent, by choosing the safe route again. Callie watched him, waiting to see which version of Oliver won. His thumb hovered over publish, trembling just once. Then he whispered, "I'm done being the man who saves himself first." Before Callie could answer, the clinic doors slammed open. A deputy stepped in with papers and a face that carried bad news. "Callie Hart," he said, loud enough for the waiting room to hear. "I have legal notice," he continued, eyes flicking toward Oliver like warning. Callie took the papers without shaking, because she refused to give fear a show. Oliver stepped forward instinctively, and Callie stopped him with her hand. The header on the page made her stomach drop. Subpoena. Callie Hart to testify. The subpoena felt heavier than paper should ever feel. Callie read the header again as if the letters might rearrange themselves into mercy. The waiting room hummed with ordinary coughs and quiet prayers. A mother rocked a baby. An old man stared at his hands. Nothing in the room looked like crisis, yet crisis had just entered. Oliver's eyes tracked the deputy's retreat like a predator measuring danger. Callie folded the notice with surgeon-level calm and said, "No one panics. Not here." Behind the reception desk, she scanned the fine print with ruthless focus. They wanted her under oath, under lights, under someone else's narrative. A tactic as old as power. Make the steady woman look unstable. Oliver leaned closer, careful not to invade her space. "Do you have a lawyer?" he asked, voice quiet, respectful. "I have a town attorney and a backbone," Callie replied without looking up. Oliver nodded once. "Then I'll bring you someone who can match their teeth." By afternoon, a legal team had arrived. 2 attorneys and a paralegal with sharp eyes. They weren't flashy. They were disciplined, the kind of people who didn't waste breath. Oliver paid for nothing publicly and claimed no credit privately. He simply said, "Protect her, protect the clinic," and stepped back. Callie noticed the restraint like she noticed clean stitches, small, but telling. Old Oliver would have tried to control the room with money and authority. This Oliver built support systems and let her remain the center of her own fight. The first meeting happened in the clinic's cramped office, files stacked like walls. Callie spoke in facts, leases, inspections, funding sources, documented storm expenses. The attorney listened, then asked the question that cut deepest. "Are they trying to paint you as complicit with Mr. Hale?" Callie's jaw tightened, because she knew the answer before it was spoken. Oliver didn't interrupt, didn't flinch, didn't defend himself with charm. His silence wasn't avoidance. It was permission for her truth to lead. Rumors spread by sundown, faster than the winter wind across open fields. At the diner, someone said Callie and Oliver planned it all together. On a local forum, a stranger called her a pawn with good PR. Callie didn't respond to a single post, not one. Instead, she printed their lies and pinned them in her office like evidence. Pain didn't scare her. Distortion did. Oliver saw the papers on the wall and whispered, "I'm sorry they're doing this to you." "That apology has an expiration date," Callie answered. Not cruel, just honest. She pushed a chart into a folder, then met his eyes with surgical precision. "You don't get to say sorry and call it healing." Oliver swallowed hard, the muscle in his jaw working against old pride. "I know," he said. "Tell me what helps. Tell me what harms." Callie exhaled, surprised by the question's humility. "Consistency," she said, "and no shortcuts." Consistency arrived the next morning, dressed in ordinary work. Oliver showed up before the doors opened and shoveled the icy ramp. He salted the steps, fixed the loose handrail, replaced burned-out bulbs. No audience, no speech, no meaningful glance meant to earn softness. A nurse watched from the window and muttered, "He's trying too hard." Oliver didn't correct her, didn't argue, didn't seek approval. Callie observed the quiet labor and felt her chest tighten in a way she refused to name. When the clinic got slammed with flu cases, he stayed in the background. He restocked gloves, carried blankets, ran errands to the pharmacy. At one point, a frightened teenager snapped, "Are you famous or something?" Oliver smiled gently, not proud, not defensive, "Not the kind that matters," he said. The boy laughed, tension breaking for a second. Callie caught the moment from across the hall and looked away quickly. Kindness didn't erase the past, but it made the present harder to dismiss. Night brought the kind of quiet that leaves room for memory to attack. Callie locked up the clinic late, shoulders heavy, brain still running triage. Oliver waited by the porch light, far enough to be respectful, close enough to be present. He held out a thermos like an offering that didn't demand acceptance. "Soup," he said. No conversation required. Callie hesitated, then took it, fingertips brushing his by accident. The touch lasted one breath, and still, it felt like a risk. They walked to their cars under a sky that looked bruised with clouds. Callie spoke first because silence could become its own trap. "They're going to ask why you funded the clinic," she said. Oliver's gaze stayed forward, steady as a man who'd finally stopped lying to himself. "They can ask," he replied. "I'll answer." Her laugh was short, bitter. "They won't ask you first. They'll corner me." Oliver stopped walking. "Then I'll make sure they can't." A plan formed in the days that followed. Measured, legal, relentless. Depositions scheduled, evidence organized, community statements collected. Callie prepared like she prepared for surgery. No panic, only readiness. Oliver moved behind the scenes, securing documents, tracing the group's timeline. He slept little and ate less, but he didn't complain. When the attorney warned, "They'll try to break her," Oliver answered calmly, "They won't." Callie heard it, and hated how safe the sentence almost sounded. Safety had once been Oliver's promise, and he had broken it. That truth returned to Callie in waves when she practiced testimony alone at night. Her voice stayed steady, but her hands shook when no one watched. In therapy, she admitted what she never said out loud: abandonment rewires trust. It teaches the heart to brace for loss even in bright rooms. Callie didn't want to punish Oliver. She wanted to protect herself. Healing, she realized, wasn't romance. It was rebuilding internal security. On the morning of the deposition, the town felt too awake. Coffee shops were crowded, radios louder, conversations sharper. Callie wore a simple navy coat and the kind of composure you couldn't buy. Oliver met her at the courthouse steps but didn't touch her. He only opened the door and said, "You lead. I follow." Inside, fluorescent lights washed warmth out of everything. Callie walked in like a woman who refused to be rewritten. The opposing counsel tried sweetness first, then pressure. Questions came wrapped in polite tone and sharpened intent. "Isn't it true you benefited from Mr. Hale's generosity?" Callie answered with measured clarity. The clinic benefited. The town benefited. They pushed again. Were you in contact with him before his return? Oliver's fingers tightened on the bench, but he stayed silent. Callie met the lawyer's gaze. No, and if I had been, I wouldn't be ashamed. A pause. Then the dagger. Did you accept funds in exchange for influence? Callie felt heat rise, not from guilt, from insult. She breathed once, twice, grounding herself like she'd learned. My work isn't for sale, she said, voice low and unshakable. The lawyer smiled thinly, pretending the answer was emotional rather than factual. Across the room, Oliver stood suddenly. That question is harassment, he said. The judge warned him to sit, but the damage was done. Oliver had shown his hand. Outside, in the courthouse hallway, Oliver's restraint finally cracked. Not into anger, into a kind of trembling grief he couldn't keep buried. I left you to carry everything, he said, voice rough. And now they're trying to break you because of me. Callie stared at him, heart pounding. Because truth can be intimate. This is what consequences look like, she replied, quieter than she intended. Oliver nodded, eyes wet, pride nowhere to be found. Then let the consequences land on me, he said, not on you. That night, Oliver released his statement publicly. No vague confession, no PR gloss, names, timelines, documents, and accountability. He exposed the deal, the pressure, the threats, and his refusal to cooperate. He didn't mention Callie as a romantic angle, didn't frame her as his redemption. He framed her as the standard the town should protect. His phone started ringing within minutes. Partners, investors, people demanding explanations. Oliver turned it off and drove to the clinic anyway. Callie found him in the parking lot under falling snow, shoulders hunched against the cold. He looked up like a man waiting for impact and said, I did it. I burned the bridge. Before she could respond, a text hit her phone from an unknown number. One line. No signature. No mercy. Stop testifying, or the clinic burns. Callie's blood went ice, and she lifted her eyes to Oliver's. For the first time, fear wasn't about her heart. It was about her people. The threat didn't feel like a message. It felt like someone's hand closing around the town's throat. Callie reread the words until her eyes burned. Stop testifying or the clinic burns. Snow drifted down like innocence, quiet and soft, mocking the violence underneath. Oliver's face tightened, not with panic but with the grim focus of a man who finally understood stakes. Callie slid the phone into her pocket like a weapon she wasn't ready to show anyone. Fear could not be the leader. Not tonight. They didn't drive away. They walked inside. Callie turned on every light in the lobby, as if brightness could refuse darkness entry. Oliver checked doors, windows, the back entrance. Methodical. Silent. It wasn't romantic. It was protective in the most unglamorous way. Callie called the sheriff, not trembling, not dramatizing. Threat received, she said. I need patrols and cameras immediately. Oliver didn't interrupt. He didn't claim control. He simply stayed close enough to be useful. The sheriff arrived with 2 deputies and the kind of face that had seen too much. He read the message, then looked at Callie as if weighing her strength. You want to stop testimony? He asked. That's intimidation. Callie's voice came out steady, colder than winter. Then treat it like a crime. The sheriff nodded once. We will. Oliver spoke next, calm but unyielding. I'll pay for security upgrades tonight. Callie shot him a look. No hero purchases, she warned. Oliver lifted both hands. Not hero. Protection. By midnight, cameras were installed and motion lights cut through the parking lot. The clinic looked like a fortress built out of necessity, not fear. Callie walked the halls alone once the deputies left, listening to the building breathe. This place wasn't just walls. It was babies born safely, wounds closed, lives extended. She pressed her palm against the reception desk and felt her chest tighten. Oliver's footsteps approached softly behind her, careful not to startle. You're thinking about stopping, he said, not accusing, naming. Callie didn't turn. I'm thinking about my patients, she corrected. Their oxygen tanks, their insulin, their dialysis rides. Her voice cracked on the last word and she hated herself for it. Oliver stepped closer but still didn't touch her. "If you stop, they win," he said. "And they'll do it again to someone else." Callie finally faced him, eyes bright with controlled fury. "You don't get to tell me what winning is," she whispered. "Not after you left me to lose alone." Oliver absorbed it like he'd trained for this pain. "I know," he said. "I'm not asking you to be brave for me." He swallowed hard, eyes fixed on hers like a vow. "Be brave for you, for them, and let me take the hit that comes with it." Callie laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You can't take everything." Oliver's scarred hand flexed at his side. "Watch me try." For a heartbeat, Callie saw the kind of love that doesn't beg. Love that stands. The next morning, the town woke up to Oliver's public statement. It was everywhere, shared, screenshot, debated like a scandal. Some people called it brave. Others called it manipulation. A radio host said, "Sounds like a redemption tour." Callie turned off the car radio with a firm click and focused on the road. She refused to let strangers decide what her life meant. At the clinic, the line was longer than ever, and not all of them were there for care. A group of men in branded jackets stood outside, pretending to be concerned citizens. Their smiles were too sharp, their questions too rehearsed. "Is Callie Hart using donations properly?" one asked loudly. A woman recorded on her phone, hungry for a clip to twist. Callie stepped outside and didn't raise her voice. "This clinic is audited," she said. "My finances are transparent. Your intimidation is not." One man smirked. "You sure about that?" he asked, and the threat hid in the grin. Oliver walked out behind her and stopped at her shoulder, present, not possessive. He didn't put an arm around her. He didn't speak over her. He faced the group with eyes like stone and a voice that didn't shake. "You want someone to blame?" he said. "Blame me." The men laughed like it was a game. "We are," one replied. "And we'll crush you." Oliver nodded once as if he'd already accepted the outcome. "Then do it," he said. "But you won't touch her." Callie's stomach tightened at the protective line he drew. Not because she needed saving, because she recognized sacrifice when she saw it. Still, she refused to let it soften her boundaries. Inside, she pulled Oliver aside and spoke low and lethal. "Do not turn me into your redemption story," she warned. Oliver's eyes stayed steady. "I won't," he promised. "You're not my lesson. You're a person I hurt." Callie held his gaze, searching for performance and finding none. That afternoon, the sheriff called with partial results. The number used to text Callie was untraceable. Burner, prepaid, dead end. But a patrol had spotted the same black SUV circling the clinic twice. Callie felt the familiar adrenaline she used in emergencies. She didn't freeze. She planned. They moved medications to a secured room. They arranged alternate transport routes. In every decision, Callie became what she always was, the steady one. Later, in the quiet of the supply room, Callie finally allowed herself a breath. Her hands shook as she labeled boxes, and she hated the vulnerability. Oliver stepped in, saw her trembling, and didn't comment. He simply picked up a marker and started labeling with her, side by side. No speeches, no dramatic comfort. The silence between them changed shape, less haunted, more human. Callie's throat tightened because healing often looks like the ordinary continuing. "You're not scared," Callie said suddenly, more accusation than question. Oliver's marker paused. Then he answered honestly. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "I just don't have the right to make you manage it." Callie's eyes burned, surprised by the maturity in that sentence. He went on, voice low. "I used to think fear meant leave first." His breath hitched once. "Now I know fear means stay. And do the right thing anyway." Callie looked at him like she'd never seen him before. For the first time, she asked the question she'd buried for years. "Was it ever me?" she whispered. "Or was it always your own broken pride?" Oliver's face tightened, and his eyes turned glassy with regret. "It was never you," he said. "You were the best part of my life." He swallowed hard, voice cracking on the truth. "I left because loving you made me see my own emptiness." Callie exhaled, pain and validation colliding in her chest. The moment could have turned into romance. Soft lighting, hands touching, forgiveness offered too soon. Callie refused that version. She stepped back, voice steady, boundaries intact. "I hear you," she said. "But hearing isn't healing." Oliver nodded once, accepting the pace like penance. "What does healing look like to you?" he asked. Callie stared at him for a long second. "Time," she said. "Consistency. And safety." Safety shattered again 2 nights later. A small fire flared behind the clinic. Trash bins ignited, smoke curling into the winter air. The alarm screamed. Callie ran outside barefoot in a panic she couldn't control. Oliver was already moving, yanking an extinguisher from the wall. He smothered flames with fast, practiced aggression coughing through smoke. Deputies arrived seconds later, lights flashing red and blue across snow. Callie stood shaking, eyes wide, because the threat had become real. In the chaos, Oliver's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Callie heard only his side, but it was enough. His face drained of color, his grip tightened until his knuckles went white. "Yes," he said quietly. "I understand." Then, after a pause, his voice hardened into something dangerous and calm. "No," he said. "You won't get her. You'll get me." He ended the call and looked at Callie like he was about to disappear for her safety. "I need you to listen to me," Oliver said, stepping close for the first time. Not touching, just close enough that she could feel the truth in his breath. "They're escalating. They want you afraid enough to quit." Callie's eyes flashed with fury. "I won't quit," she snapped. Oliver's voice broke in the smallest way. "Then let me end this." He swallowed, then said the words that split the night open. "I'm going to turn myself in as the target, and I'm going to expose everything, even if it destroys my empire." Oliver's words didn't land like romance. They landed like a match struck in the dark. Dangerous, decisive, irreversible. Callie stared at him under the flashing patrol lights, breath coming too fast. His face was smeared with soot, his eyes bright with a calm that scared her. Men who ran didn't speak like this. Men who performed didn't offer their empire as collateral. And men who truly changed looked exactly like Oliver did right then. "You don't get to martyr yourself," Callie said, voice sharp with control. The snow kept falling, soft as lies, while smoke faded into the night. Oliver shook his head slowly. "Not martyr," he corrected. "Accountable." Callie's hands trembled, and she curled them into fists to hide it. "If you go after them alone, they'll chew you up," she warned. Oliver's gaze didn't flinch. "Then I'll make sure I leave teeth marks behind." Callie hated the bravery, because bravery could still leave her abandoned. Inside the clinic, the sheriff spoke in clipped sentences. Arson attempt, intimidation, escalation, investigation. Callie listened like she listened to diagnoses, absorbing, processing, planning. Oliver remained at her side, not touching her, but never drifting away. When the sheriff asked, "Do you feel safe staying open?" Callie answered, "We don't close." Oliver said nothing until the sheriff turned his attention to him. "I'll cooperate fully," Oliver stated, "and I'll give you names." By morning, Oliver's attorneys were replaced by federal-level counsel. Callie watched him on the phone in the back office, voice low, controlled. He wasn't begging for help. He was handing out instructions like a man done negotiating. He pulled out his laptop and opened folders labeled with dates and meeting notes, evidence, emails, contracts, threat logs. It was terrifying how prepared he was, how long he'd been collecting proof. Callie realized he hadn't just returned to apologize. He'd returned with a plan to repair. They met with investigators in a room that smelled like coffee and winter coats. Callie spoke only when asked, precise and steady. Oliver handed over everything, names, figures, internal memos, even recordings. A detective raised an eyebrow. "You know this will blow back on you." Oliver didn't blink. "Good," he replied. "Let it." Callie's heart tightened, not from admiration, chack fear. Because she knew, once you pull the pin, you can't put the grenade back. The backlash arrived before lunch. Headlines framed Oliver as unstable, vindictive, reckless. Investor calls flooded in. Board members demanded meetings. A rumor spread that he was obsessed with a small-town woman and destroying deals for romance. Callie felt heat rise, protective rage aimed at a world that always tried to shrink women. Oliver read one article, then shut the laptop like closing a coffin. "Don't let them make you the scandal," he told her quietly. "You're the reason I'm doing this right." The town split in two, the way towns do when fear meets pride. Some rallied around Callie, protective and fierce. Others complained about outsiders, drama, and losing potential jobs. A man at the diner barked, "She should have stayed out of it." Callie heard it and didn't defend herself. She didn't need to. But Oliver walked in, looked the man in the eye and said, "She didn't start it. I did." Then he paid for everyone's coffee and left without waiting for applause. That night, Callie found Oliver outside behind the clinic, sitting on the curb. He looked exhausted in a way success had never touched before. Not the tiredness of work, the tiredness of finally facing consequence. Callie sat beside him at a careful distance, winter air between them like a boundary. For a while, neither spoke. Then Oliver exhaled, voice rough. "I'm scared you'll still choose peace without me." Callie's chest tightened because honesty was the most intimate thing he'd ever offered. "I did choose peace without you," Callie said softly. "I built it, brick by brick, alone." Oliver nodded, eyes fixed on his hands like they were evidence of old sins. "I know," he whispered, "and I hate that you had to." Callie's throat burned. "I don't want you because I'm lonely," she continued. "I don't want you because I need saving." She looked at him then, direct, unflinching. "If I ever choose you again, it will be from wholeness." Oliver's eyes filled, and he didn't wipe them fast enough to hide it. "That's the only way I deserve," he said. Callie heard the old Oliver in that sentence. Control, self-punishment, extremes. So she corrected him gently but firmly. "This isn't about deserve," she said. "It's about trust." Oliver swallowed. "Tell me what trust costs," he asked. Callie answered without hesitation. "Time, safety, and you staying when it stops feeling good." The next weeks moved like slow healing, painful, steady, real. Security stayed at the clinic. Patrols became routine. The investigation tightened around the development group like a net. Court dates were scheduled. Injunction attempts weakened. Oliver kept showing up, not with grand gestures but daily consistency. He drove seniors to appointments when volunteers canceled. He repaired the clinic's old generator with grease on his hands and no camera nearby. Then came the hearing that would decide everything. The courthouse was packed. Town locals, lawyers, reporters hungry for conflict. Callie wore a simple dress and the kind of calm that made people quiet. Oliver sat behind her, not beside her, as if he refused to claim her space. The judge reviewed evidence. Investigators testified. When Oliver was called, the room leaned forward like it wanted blood. He stood and said, "I left once to protect my pride. I'm here now to protect what matters." Opposing counsel attacked him like a dog with a bone. "So this is about guilt?" they sneered. "About repairing your image?" Oliver's voice stayed even. "My image is already burned," he replied. They pushed harder. "You're doing this for Callie Hart." Oliver paused, eyes flicking to Callie, asking permission without words. Callie didn't look back. She stayed facing forward, steady. Oliver turned to the judge. "I'm doing this because what they're doing is wrong, and because I was wrong first." The ruling came in the late afternoon. The injunction was denied. The clinic's protection was upheld. The development group was formally investigated for intimidation and misconduct. A gasp moved through the crowd like wind through leaves. Callie closed her eyes for 1 second, letting relief touch her chest. Oliver didn't celebrate. He didn't smile like a winner. He simply exhaled like a man who had finally stopped bleeding internally. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Microphones pushed forward. Questions shouted like stones. "Callie, are you together?" "Oliver, did you do it for love?" Callie stepped forward and lifted her hand, one calm motion that silenced them more than shouting ever could. "This clinic isn't a love story," she said. "It's a lifeline." Oliver stood behind her, quiet, eyes on the ground. refusing to steal her light. Callie turned slightly and added, "And if anyone here wants to talk about redemption, talk about actions." That evening, the town held a small celebration at the clinic. Not champagne and speeches, homemade pie, cheap coffee, laughter that sounded like relief. Children ran between chairs. Nurses hugged each other like survivors. Oliver stayed near the wall, letting Callie receive the gratitude. A little girl approached him, holding a crayon drawing of the clinic. She offered it shyly. "For you," she said. Oliver accepted it with shaking hands, and his eyes filled again, because he finally understood what he'd almost helped destroy. Later, outside under the porch light, Callie found him alone again. He stared at the drawing like it was sacred. "I'm not asking you for anything," Oliver said before she could speak. His voice was quiet, stripped of strategy. "I'm staying in town because I want to be a better man here, even if you never let me back in." Callie's heart clenched, not because she was weak, but because that sentence was the opposite of abandonment. She stepped closer, closing distance by choice, not impulse. "I'm not forgiving you as a gift," Callie whispered. "I'm forgiving you as a process." Oliver's breath caught, like he didn't trust hope to be safe. Callie lifted her hand and touched his cheek. Warm skin, real presence, no illusion. "I rebuilt my life without you," she said, eyes shining. "So if you're in it now, it's because you earned room." Oliver didn't speak. He only leaned forward like someone finally allowed to come home. Callie rose on her toes and kissed him. Slow, steady, not desperate, promise replacing pain. And in that kiss, the whole town's winter finally ended. The months that followed didn't feel like a fairy tale. They felt like real life. Steady, imperfect, earned. Spring arrived the way healing always does. Quietly at first, then all at once. Fields softened from frost to green. The river ran clearer. People smiled more easily. And the clinic, Callie's clinic, stood stronger than it ever had. Not because it was saved by one man, but because an entire community refused to let fear win. Oliver kept his promise the only way it mattered. In repetition. He showed up on ordinary Tuesdays, not just dramatic court days. He carried boxes, fixed doors, drove patients, attended meetings that didn't flatter him. When donations came in, he redirected the applause to Callie. When reporters called, he refused to make her a headline. When his empire took hits, he rebuilt it without blaming her, because he finally understood that love is not a transaction. Callie, meanwhile, didn't become softer out of desperation. She became softer out of safety. She let forgiveness unfold like a slow sunrise, one boundary at a time, one honest conversation at a time, not because she forgot what abandonment did to her, but because she refused to let the past define the rest of her life. One evening, near the end of April, Oliver asked her to meet him behind the clinic after closing. No crowd, no cameras, just the porch light and the sound of crickets waking up. Callie walked out and found a small wooden bench there, new, sturdy, handmade. A plaque was fixed to the back, simple and quiet. Callie Hart, because she stayed. Her throat tightened in a way she didn't try to hide. Oliver stood a few steps away, hands clasped, posture humble. "I didn't build that to impress you," he said. "I built it because you should have somewhere to sit when you're tired. And remember, you never had to carry everything alone." Callie stared at him, eyes bright, chest full of the kind of emotion that doesn't scream, only settles. "You're learning," she whispered. Oliver nodded once. "I'm choosing it. Every day." Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small ring box. Not flashy, not dramatic. The kind of choice that felt intentional, not performative. He didn't kneel right away. He waited, like he had learned that love doesn't rush to take. "Callie," he said softly, "I'm not asking you to erase the past. I'm asking you to let the future be different. I left once because I was afraid of being seen. I'm here now because I finally understand that love is staying, even when it costs you." Callie stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath, close enough to see the truth in his eyes. She lifted her hand and placed it over his scarred one, the same hand that had learned to stop running. "I will never be the woman who begs a man to choose her. she said. Oliver's eyes filled and he didn't look away. I know, he whispered. That's why this means everything. Callie opened the ring box, stared at the simple light inside it, and smiled. Small, real, unguarded. Then she closed it gently and pressed it back into his hand. Oliver's face fell for one terrifying second, and Callie said, "Not yet." He froze, pain flashing, until she added, "Because I'm not saying yes to a moment. I'm saying yes to a life. So I want one promise first, one that's bigger than a ring." Oliver swallowed. "Name it." Callie held his gaze, steady as always. No disappearing when it gets hard. No pride over truth. No running when love asks you to be real. Stay, without needing applause. Oliver's voice broke. "I will." And this time it wasn't a vow made in comfort. It was a vow made after consequences, after fire and threats and fear. And still, he stayed. Callie took the ring box again, opened it, and nodded once. "Then yes," she whispered. "But we do this slowly. We do this right." Oliver dropped to one knee anyway. Like his body finally understood what his heart had learned. He slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, and Callie laughed through tears she didn't bother hiding. When he stood, she didn't let the moment become a show. She pulled him close, forehead to forehead, and breathed him in like a future that finally felt safe. "I don't believe in perfect love," she whispered. Oliver's arms tightened around her, careful, reverent. "Me neither," he said. "I believe in redeemed love." Callie rose on her toes and kissed him. Warm, slow, certain. A kiss that didn't beg the past to change. A kiss that simply promised the next day, and the next, and the next. Behind them, the clinic lights glowed steady against the night. And in that steady light, Callie's story became what it was always meant to be. Not a woman waiting to be chosen. A woman who became whole, and then chose love again. Because it finally deserved her. If this story touched you, if you've ever been left behind, rebuilt yourself and wondered if love could still be safe, then you are exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to Redeemed Hearts for more stories that prove second chances aren't for the careless. They're for the transformed. Like this video if you believe actions can rebuild what words broke. And share it with a woman who needs to remember. She can heal, she can rise, and she can love again without losing herself. Now tell me in the comments, do you believe Oliver truly deserved Callie's yes? Or did he only earn the right to keep proving it?